Rain dripped steadily against the window of the coffee shop in downtown Seattle, tracing lazy paths down the glass like fingers searching for a way in. Caleb Russo sat alone at the corner table, laptop open but forgotten, a half-finished black coffee going cold beside him. His headphones played soft jazz, but his eyes were distant, focused on a world he hadn't stepped into in years. Then came the buzz, a text, from his mother, 5 words. Your father's gone. Heart attack. No, I'm sorry. No, how are you? Just an icy announcement delivered like a stock report. For a long moment, Caleb stared at the screen, unmoving. The world around him hummed with soft conversation, grinding espresso machines, the clatter of cups. But inside him, something cracked. He hadn't seen George Russo in over 5 years. Not since the day he walked out of the family's Manhattan empire, leaving behind a legacy of billion-dollar hedge funds, high-rise boardrooms, and a brother who thrived on control. Nathan took the throne, Caleb took the fall. The failed son, the wasted mind. That's how they all saw him. And yet, despite the silence, the Cold War, the distance, his father's death hit like a fist to the chest. Not because of grief, but because something about it felt off. George Russo didn't just die. He planned. He controlled. Every move in his life had a purpose. So why now? Why like this? Caleb closed the laptop with a sharp click and stared out into the gray rain. He hadn't stepped foot in the family mansion in years. But now, something was pulling him back. Not love, not loyalty, a gut feeling. And Caleb had learned, when his gut spoke, he damn well better listen. The Russo family mansion hadn't changed. A towering brownstone in the heart of Manhattan, all glass and marble and quiet menace. It loomed like a monument to legacy, one that Caleb had long been erased from. The driver dropped him off without a word. As he stepped inside, the scent of polished wood and old money hit him like a wall. He was home, technically, but not really. The foyer was filled with people in black, suits, stilettos, pearls. Grief had been dressed up for show. They whispered in corners, sipped champagne like it was just another networking event. No one noticed Caleb at first, and when they did, the glances were brief, tinged with polite confusion. You came, a cool voice said from the grand staircase. Nathan Russo, tall, pressed, effortless in his grief. Caleb's older brother wore sorrow like a tailored suit, just the right amount to seem respectable. Wasn't sure you'd make the time, Nathan added, descending like a prince returning from battle. Caleb forced a tight smile. Wouldn't want to miss the performance. Nathan's lips twitched, amused. We'll talk later. Later came fast. In the drawing room, amid the hushed hum of moneyed condolences, Nathan gathered the inner circle. Their mother, Victoria, perched on a velvet armchair like a queen at court. And then it came. The announcement. A new will. One no one had seen, except Nathan. Our father left the company to me, he said. All of it. Full transfer of shares, per his final wishes. It's already in motion. Caleb blinked. What? No one looked surprised. Not even their mother. Nathan clapped a hand on Caleb's shoulder, as if that explained everything. And maybe it did. The failed son gets a funeral invitation. The favored son gets the empire. Back in Seattle, Caleb couldn't sleep. The weight of the Russo mansion clung to him like smoke. The funeral, the way Nathan had delivered the will like a business memo, the indifference in their mother's eyes. It all looped in his mind like a corrupted file. He sat alone in his dark apartment, fingers tracing the edges of the old wristwatch his father had left him. It was a classic Hamilton, the kind George Rousseau used to wear when he was still human, before the empire hardened him. Caleb had dismissed it at first as a token gesture, a consolation prize, but something about the weight of the watch felt off. Frowning, he turned it over, inspecting the back plate. There, barely visible, was a tiny groove along the clasp. With a gentle push, the back popped open. Inside, a micro USB drive. His breath hitched, hands suddenly trembling. Caleb plugged it into his laptop. A single file appeared, no encryption, no passwords, just a video, titled, "For Caleb." He clicked play. His father appeared on screen, sitting in the same office where Caleb had last seen him. Oak bookshelves behind, the city skyline glittering through the glass. "Caleb," George Rousseau said, voice low, almost uncertain. "If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it, and I don't believe that was by chance." The breath left Caleb's lungs. "I've uncovered things about Nathan," George continued. "Transfers, hidden accounts. He's building something dangerous, something offshore. I was planning to change the will, to undo what I started, but I don't think I'll get the chance." A pause. Then, "I'm sorry I was never the father you needed, but you're the only one I trust now." The video ended. Caleb stared at the screen, hollowed out. Whatever had happened to George Rousseau, it wasn't over. The office of Cohen and Marks sat on the 15th floor of a sleek glass building in Midtown. Its clean lines and frosted glass hiding the messier truths of wealth and inheritance. Caleb sat across from Ms. Cohen, his father's longtime estate attorney. Her silver hair pulled into a severe knot, reading glasses perched low on her nose as she flipped through a manila file. "I'm not here to start a war," Caleb said, though the tension in his shoulders betrayed him. "I just want to know when this new will was signed." Cohen didn't look up. 3 days before your father died." The number hung in the air like a gunshot. He was found alone, collapsed in his office. "You think that's coincidence?" Caleb pressed. Cohen's fingers froze. For a moment, her eyes lifted to meet his. "Off the record?" she said softly. Caleb nodded. "I knew George was planning changes," she murmured. "We had a draft. He wanted to restructure Russo Capital, transfer part of it into a foundation for tech education. He mentioned you." Caleb's throat tightened. "But the next day," Cohen continued, voice brittle, "he canceled. Said Nathan had made a compelling case. He seemed agitated, not himself. Then came the new document. Just Nathan, nothing else." "And you didn't question it?" She leaned back, exhaling. "It was signed, witnessed, notarized. I can't act on a hunch, Caleb." But he could. "Can I see the signature?" he asked. Cohen hesitated, then turned the page toward him. Caleb scanned it, and there it was. His father's signature. Or something like it. Too clean. Too neat. George Rousseau's handwriting had a shake in the R. This one didn't. A copy, or worse, a forgery. Caleb leaned back in the chair, mind racing. Nathan hadn't just outmaneuvered him. He'd rewritten the past, erased his father's final intentions like they were a bad line in a contract. But the cracks were showing, and Caleb intended to pry them wide open. The Italian place hadn't changed in 20 years. Dim lighting, checkered tablecloths, the same Sinatra playlist humming low in the background. It used to be the only restaurant their father ever took them to when he wanted to pretend to be normal. Caleb had always hated it. Too many memories pretending they were a family. He spotted her at the corner booth. Eleanor Monroe, his father's former executive assistant. Crisp beige coat, dark eyes that had seen more boardroom wars than most generals. She looked up as he approached, her face softening with something close to surprise. "Caleb Russo," she said. "I wondered if you'd reach out. I wasn't sure you'd say yes. I owed him that much." They sat. He didn't waste time. "You were close to my father," Caleb said. "Closer than most. Did he ever mention changing the structure of the company? A foundation, maybe. Something for education?" Eleanor hesitated. Then she reached into her bag and slid a folder across the table. "I kept a copy," she said. "He told me to delete it after the meeting. I didn't." Caleb opened the folder slowly. Inside, a draft proposal for the Russo Foundation for Technology Access, dated just a week before his father's death. In the margins, his father's notes. Focus on rural schools. Talk to Caleb about partnership. The words blurred slightly as Caleb stared at them. "He meant it," Eleanor said quietly. "He wanted to undo the damage. Leave something real behind." "What happened?" "Nathan found out. He cornered your father. The next day, everything was scrapped. Your dad wouldn't talk about it after that. Just said it was too late." Caleb exhaled, trying to steady the rage. He was going to do the right thing, he said. And Nathan made sure no one ever saw it. "Not no one," Eleanor replied. "Now you've seen it." She looked at him steadily. "You going to let your brother rewrite the ending?" The old co-working space still smelled like energy drinks and burnt ambition. It had been years since Caleb set foot inside the modest loft where he'd once tried to launch a failed startup. But some things never changed, especially Liam. Liam Navarro was a cybersecurity whiz who operated with one foot in the gray area and the other on a skateboard. He looked up from a tangle of monitors as Caleb walked in. "Well, well," Liam said, grinning. "Did the golden son finally get kicked out of the family trust fund?" "Something like that," Caleb replied. "I need to follow a trail. Quietly." Liam's grin faded. "How deep?" "Deep enough that I might get sued. Or disappear." That got his attention. Caleb slid the USB across the table. "This is what my father left me. I think Nathan's been moving money offshore. Shell companies, fake investors. I just don't know how. Yet." Liam leaned in. "You're saying your brother laundered money through your dad's firm?" "I'm saying he's building an empire under everyone's nose. And my father died before he could stop him." Liam cracked his knuckles, spun his chair, and got to work. Within hours, they had names. Wire transfers. Shadow companies based in the Caymans, Luxembourg, Singapore. All with signatures that matched executives linked to Russo Capital. Except those people didn't exist. Their profiles were stitched together from stock photos and fabricated bios. "It's a money maze," Liam muttered, eyes scanning lines of code. "But it's too clean. Someone with access covered their tracks. Until now." Caleb stared at the web of accounts displayed across 3 monitors. Dozens of arrows, all pointed back to the same initials. NR, Nathan Russo. Caleb's hands curled into fists. This wasn't just greed. It was control. Nathan hadn't only cut Caleb out of the will. He'd buried their father's entire legacy beneath layers of digital corruption. Caleb reached for his phone. It was time to shine a light on everything. The boardroom at Russo Capital was more like a war chamber. A long glass table stretched beneath a vaulted ceiling, city lights spilling in through floor-to-ceiling windows. The chairs were already filled. 12 voting members, all dressed in black suits, eyes sharp and unreadable. At the head of the table, Nathan Russo stood like a king presiding over his court. Until Caleb walked in, the room shifted. Some looked surprised, others amused. No one expected the black sheep to show up, especially not on shareholder presentation day. Nathan didn't flinch. "This is a closed meeting, Caleb." Caleb didn't break stride. "I'm a shareholder. Small, yes, but legally recognized. And I have something the board needs to see." A pause. Calculations were made behind every eye in the room. Caleb stopped at the projector terminal, plugged in a flash drive, and clicked. The screen lit up with a paused video. George Russo, seated in his office, eyes tired, voice about to speak from beyond the grave. "This is a video my father recorded before his death," Caleb said, voice steady but coiled. "It contains a message that contradicts the most recent will and raises serious doubts about Nathan's conduct as CEO." Nathan chuckled. "Too loud, too dismissive. You're kidding me. We're doing ghost stories now?" No one laughed. Caleb hit play. The board watched in complete silence as George Russo spoke. About hidden accounts, about offshore transfers, about fear, about Nathan. When the video ended, Caleb laid out printed evidence of shell companies, ledger entries, and false identities tied back to Nathan's digital signature. He kept his tone calm, measured, like a man holding a bomb without blinking. "I believe my father was preparing to expose a financial scheme," Caleb said. "One that's still active, and I believe he died before he could change the structure of this company to stop it." Silence. Then murmurs, a few glances between board members, and then Nathan clapped slowly, mock applause filling the room. "You done?" he said. "This little melodrama? Because unless you have an actual legal claim and not a sob story from a failed son, you're wasting everyone's time." He turned to the board. "My father was sick, delirious. That video, taken out of context. My brother, desperate and bitter. I'll be filing a formal injunction for slander." Caleb didn't move. He didn't have to. The seed was planted, and Nathan's kingdom had started to crack. It started as a whisper on a financial blog. A short post, almost overlooked, titled, "The Other Russo Heir Has Something to Say." Within hours, it spread like wildfire. Caleb hadn't planned to go public. He wasn't made for camera lenses and headlines. But after the boardroom stunt, Nathan's legal team launched a full-scale counteroffensive. Press releases discrediting Caleb, articles calling him mentally unstable, old photos from college twisted into stories of recklessness and failure. Nathan was burning every bridge Caleb might use to speak. So Caleb lit a fire of his own. He reached out to Maya Hernandez, an independent journalist with a reputation for exposing financial corruption. She didn't work for legacy media. She worked for truth, and she didn't scare easily. They met in a quiet cafe in Brooklyn. Caleb handed her a folder and a flash drive. She listened more than she spoke, scribbling furiously into her notebook, eyes flaring only once. When she saw the offshore wire transfers and George Russo's final video. "This is big," Maya whispered. "It's real," Caleb said, "and it needs to be loud." 2 days later, her story broke. Inside the Russo empire, fraud, betrayal, and the video that changes everything. It included screenshots of fake employee records, voice snippets from George's message, timeline breakdowns of Nathan's money trail, anonymous confirmations from 2 whistleblowers inside the company. Public reaction was swift and brutal. Social media exploded. Former partners issued statements of concern. 3 members of the board demanded an emergency session. Regulatory agencies began circling. For the first time, Nathan was off balance. Caleb watched the news from his apartment, breath shallow, hands shaking, not with fear, but something unfamiliar, hope. But he knew better than to get comfortable, because when predators are cornered, they don't beg, they bite. That same night, his email was hacked. His apartment was broken into, nothing stolen, but everything turned upside down. A message. Then came the cease and desist letters, threats of lawsuits, and a final warning slipped under his door in handwriting he recognized: walk away or fall harder. It wasn't just business anymore. Nathan was making it personal. The office hadn't changed since the last time Caleb had been kicked out of it. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan, like a conqueror surveying his empire. The same leather chairs, the same brushed steel desk. Except now it belonged to Nathan, who sat behind it like a CEO in a movie, calm, composed, rehearsed. Caleb stood opposite, his fists clenched at his sides, heart pounding like a drum. Nathan looked up slowly. You have 5 minutes. I don't need 5, Caleb said. I just want to know how far you're willing to go. Nathan leaned back, steepling his fingers. Farther than you, clearly. Caleb stepped closer. Dad trusted you. He built this company for both of us. He wanted to fix it, to fix you. You knew that. That's why you buried him before he could act. Nathan's smile barely shifted. He was weak. Software. The world doesn't reward sentimentality, Caleb. He lost his edge, and I stepped in before he destroyed what he built. You forged his will. I protected this company. You laundered money through ghost accounts. Nathan's voice dropped. Do you have any idea how many companies do that? How many governments? You think justice is some shining sword you get to wave around because Dad finally looked at you in his final hours. Silence. Thick. Electric. Caleb's jaw tightened. You murdered your own legacy. You turned our family into a fraud. Nathan rose from his chair, circling the desk. Now they were face to face. Same height, same jawline, same ice blue eyes. But only one of them still had a soul. You'll never win, Nathan said softly. I have armies of lawyers, a PR machine, half the board. You have what? A flash drive and a blog post? Caleb leaned in. I have the truth. And you know what the thing is about truth, Nathan? He paused. It spreads, even if you don't like the way it starts. Nathan's face twitched, just for a second. It was enough. Caleb turned to leave. At the door, he glanced back. One more thing. You're not the only Russo anymore, and you're definitely not the last. He left Nathan standing in silence. But this time, the silence didn't feel like victory. It felt like a countdown. The hotel room was sterile and silent, perched high above Midtown like a temporary exile. Caleb sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, news playing softly from the TV in the background. His name was on the screen again, this time paired with words like accusations, family feud, and unverified claims. He hadn't slept in 2 nights. Across the small desk, legal papers were stacked like barricades. Cease and desist orders from Nathan's legal team, threats of defamation suits, even a temporary freeze on Caleb's personal accounts, pending further review. It was textbook corporate warfare, bleed him out quietly. He had known it was coming, but knowing didn't make it easier. The silence between blows was its own kind of pain. Slow, psychological. Nathan didn't need to win in court. He just needed Caleb to run out of energy, out of options, out of time. A knock broke the stillness. It was Miss Cohen, his father's old attorney, her coat damp from the rain. "You're not easy to find these days," she said. "I don't want to be." She stepped inside, holding a manila envelope. Her face was tight, unreadable. "I stalled the estate transfer," she said. "Filed a motion for a delay. Technical errors in the signing process. It'll buy you 48 hours, maybe less." Caleb blinked. "Why?" "Because your father didn't die for paperwork." She handed him the envelope. "Find something, anything, before this window slams shut." He nodded, jaw clenched. She hesitated at the door. "Your brother? He's not invincible, but he's dangerous. If you push, he'll push back harder." "I'm counting on it," Caleb said. After she left, he stared out the rain-blurred window. Manhattan sparkled beneath the storm like nothing was wrong, but everything was. And somewhere beneath the chaos, beneath the noise and fear, something inside him had shifted. He wasn't just defending his name anymore. He was defending his father's legacy, the one no one saw coming. And he was done being quiet. The elevator groaned as it descended to the archives, 2 levels beneath the main Russo Capitol Tower. Caleb stood alone, the overhead lights flickering like something out of a forgotten thriller. He tightened his grip on the flashlight in his hand. If there was ever a place secrets liked to rot, it was here. Eleanor had texted him one sentence. "Check storage unit 3C. Your father left breadcrumbs." He found the door tucked between rows of steel cabinets, locked with an old-fashioned key latch. Eleanor had left a key taped beneath her nameplate upstairs. Inside it smelled of old paper, dust, and time. Caleb sifted through boxes, annual reports, HR files, press clippings. Then near the bottom of a plastic crate labeled Archive Discontinued Initiatives, he saw it. A black binder marked with red ink. Russo Foundation. Draft A. He flipped it open. Inside were proposals, handwritten notes, legal amendments. On the second page was his father's signature. Not a copy, not a print. Ink pressed into paper. Authentic. And in the margins? Talk to Caleb about overseeing West Coast development. Begin transition plan quietly. Announce by end of Q2. Structure trust through education-based LLC. Nonprofit. Tech literacy access. It was there. The vision. The legacy. He pulled out his phone, snapping photos of every page. He grabbed the binder, shoved it into his backpack. As he stood to leave, his phone buzzed. A new text. Unknown number. "You should have stopped while you could." No name, no need. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight into the night with a new storm behind his eyes. His father's dream wasn't a myth. It was real, and it had almost been erased. Not anymore. The studio was smaller than it looked on screen. Just a table, a few harsh lights, and a camera operator chewing gum like this was any other Tuesday. But for Caleb, it was the edge of a cliff. Maya Hernandez, the journalist who had broken the original story, sat across from him with a calm intensity. Her voice was steady, her questions sharp, but not cruel. She was here to uncover, not to corner. "You ready?" she asked, adjusting her mic. Caleb exhaled. "No." She smiled slightly. "That's the right answer." The countdown blinked red. 3, 2, 1. "We're live," the producer mouthed. Maya leaned in. "Tonight, we're speaking with Caleb Russo, former software developer, son of the late George Russo, and the man behind the whistleblower story, shaking one of the biggest financial empires in the country." The camera moved. Caleb looked into the lens and told the truth about his father's last message, about the forged will, about the offshore shell companies, the missing foundation plans, the cover-up, the threats. He laid it all out, not as an act of revenge, but as a son reclaiming a legacy that had been stolen, not from him, but from the people it was meant to serve. My father wasn't perfect, Caleb said, but he died trying to make something right, and someone made sure that story never saw the light. I'm not here because I want a piece of the pie. I'm here because justice deserves a voice, even if it's shaking. When the segment ended, Maya turned off her mic and gave him a look of quiet respect. You just burned every bridge. I wasn't planning on going back, Caleb replied. His phone buzzed before he even left the building. Calls, emails, messages from strangers, from former employees, from investigators. The ripple had begun. Some truths don't need a courtroom. They just need to be heard. The courtroom was quieter than Caleb expected. No cameras, no reporters, just oak-paneled walls, fluorescent lighting, and the cold weight of consequence. Nathan Russo sat at the defense table in a slate-gray suit, flanked by a trio of high-priced attorneys. He looked calm, not smug, not defensive, just still, as if refusing to acknowledge the gravity of what was happening would make it all go away. It didn't. The evidence, once scattered and fragile, had become a concrete wall. Financial records, whistleblower testimony, emails, timestamps, offshore transfers, Eleanor's recovered documents, the video from George Russo, and the cherry on top, a last-minute deposition from a former compliance officer at Russo Capital, who admitted under oath that Nathan had instructed him to clean house the day after George's death. The prosecution didn't need theatrics. They just read the facts. It took less than 2 weeks. On the day the verdict was read, Caleb didn't sit in the gallery. He waited in the hallway, pacing slowly, phone in hand, too wound up to sit still. He didn't need to hear the words. He knew what they'd be. Still, when Maya appeared and nodded, her expression sober, the breath caught in his throat. Guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, money laundering, obstruction, conspiracy. 25 years without parole. Nathan was led out of the courtroom in cuffs, his eyes locked forward, jaw tight. He didn't look at Caleb. He never would again. And Caleb, he didn't feel triumphant. He felt emptied, like something vast had been carried out of him, leaving only silence behind. Outside the courthouse, reporters called his name. He said nothing. He wasn't here to be the story. The story was done. Justice had come. Not with noise, but with precision. Later that night, Caleb sat alone in a city that felt different now. Less sharp, less cruel. He stared at the skyline and whispered, "It's over." But he knew better. Some endings aren't finish lines. They're foundations. 1 year later, the plaque on the front of the modest brick building read, "The Russo Foundation for Tech Access, empowering underserved voices through code." It wasn't a skyscraper. It didn't have a rooftop helipad or polished boardrooms with skyline views. But inside, there were classrooms, old desktops refurbished and humming. Students with wide eyes and hungry questions. Teenagers who had never touched a line of code, now building websites and tinkering with prototypes. Some came after school. Some stayed all day. Caleb stood in the back of one of the rooms, watching a group of kids debate how to fix a glitch in their chatbot program. One of them wore a hoodie with the Russo logo on the back. An old design, reimagined now, not as a symbol of money, but of purpose. He smiled faintly. Eleanor walked in with 2 coffees and handed him one. "You're up early," she said. "I like it before it gets loud." "Your father would have liked this place." Caleb looked at the framed photo on the wall behind them. George Russo, mid-laugh, holding a younger Caleb with smudged glasses and a toothy grin. Next to it was the Foundation's mission statement in big, bold font. Equity is not charity. It's responsibility. He was late, Caleb said softly, but he got there. The foundation had been funded through the remaining assets reclaimed after Nathan's sentencing. Money that would have gone into another luxury fund, now used to buy laptops and pay teachers. Caleb had refused any personal payout. He didn't want the empire, just the chance to rebuild something better. He touched the key around his neck. A small USB drive, sealed, encrypted, holding every file, every piece of evidence that had brought it all down. A reminder, not of what was lost, but of what had almost been erased. A boy walked up, maybe 13, laptop in hand. "Hey, Mr. Russo?" he asked. "Can I show you something?" Caleb nodded. "Yeah, always." They walked together toward a corner desk, voices rising again in the background. Hope, motion, the next generation moving forward. And for the first time in a long time, Caleb didn't feel like the forgotten son. He felt exactly where he was meant to be.